Hello and welcome to the Marketing Dilemmas podcast brought to you by Cognism. I'm Liam and each week we discuss with real world dilemmas faced by top marketers so we can all share in and learn from each other. Today my guest is Tas, founder at the Scroll Lab. Welcome and very excited to have you here. So just so we can get our audience to get to know you, we like to kick off with a little small question on could you share us 2 truths and a lie about your role? Or it can be a personal one as well. And I'll try and work out which is the lie.
Oh, I I can't think of any marketing related ones. Maybe I could, but I think it's more fun to do the personal one, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so let's see. Number one, I watched a man kill an alligator once and then I ate it. Okay. I have 6 siblings
Okay.
and I cannot ride a bicycle.
That's a tough one. I mean, I feel like the alligator one is true. Like I feel
Okay.
like that's wild enough that it could throw me. It could be like thrown off as like, oh, obviously that's a lie. But I feel like that's got to have happened in the United States, and to me, that's the sort of thing that goes on in the US. I'm sorry. And then 6 siblings, and not being able that could be a truth or a lie easily. And then being not being able to ride a bike, truth or a lie as well. Like, I know lots of people who, if your parents didn't get you there, it's very difficult as an adult. And yeah, so
You got 5 seconds, Liam.
all right, I'm gonna go with the order that it is. I'm gonna say that the alligator's true, the siblings true, and the no, yeah, the siblings true. Oh no, what's the lie then? Oh, okay, I'm just gonna go that one. Alligators siblings true, bicycle lie.
Okay. The alligator story is true. It did not happen in the US though. It happened in China.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Well, I got that
yes,
bit
one
wrong.
of those like wet markets, and you went over
Mhm.
there, and I was like, "Oh, look at all these baby alligators!" And then the guy took it out and just started hammering on it, and I was mortified. And then I have it all on video, and my friend next to me was like, "Oh, are you not gonna eat it now?" I'm like, "Oh no, I'm still gonna eat it. I'm just still mortified at the process." And so it was just always a funny story. And then the second thing is I am an only child.
Ah,
I don't have 6 siblings, although my mom says I've never met a stranger, so I have thousands of friends. And then I cannot ride a bicycle. I learned to ride a horse before I learned to ride a bicycle. So
okay.
yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I did get caught out there massively. Yeah. I felt like because we were
Yeah.
talking about you traveling and like you seem sociable, I was like sibling person, and I was
Yeah.
like, no, there you go. Got that completely wrong. Completely misread it. So
No, it's like I have to compensate for the hole in my life that are no siblings. And so I've just made everybody else my sibling. Right.
love
All my
that.
LinkedIn friends are my brothers and sisters. So yeah.
Okay, sweet. So, actually, before we jump in as well, I think it would be like great just to learn a little bit more about you. I suppose professionally, yeah, what you do now, and just to give our audience a little bit more information.
Yeah. So my name is Tas Bober. Tas rhymes with sass. And I have been in B2B accidentally my entire career. Started out in journalism and then was an AE for 3 years, hardest job ever. Pivoted into digital marketing at the time when real time data came out. Like GA wasn't even like really a thing. And then it was Chartbeat first and then GA. Worked on digital marketing teams, and then led 3 of them for B2B companies, 2 of them SaaS. And over the last almost 2 years, I went out on my own, started a niche consultancy focused on B2B landing pages. So yeah, that's kind of been my journey in one short line, but it's been a crazy ride, but this is fun. This is a good season of my life.
Nice, Nice. Yeah, that is like you did find a. I think everyone just falls into B2B, to be honest, and then you've just
Yeah.
kind of done a whole arm of it from sales all the way through to marketing. So yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, no
wow.
one grows up saying, "Mom, I want to be a B2B marketer."
No,
Maybe my daughter.
yeah, yeah. And maybe that is the next evolution. But that's when we know we've done B2B marketing well, is when
Yes.
kids start saying that they want to do it. That you've
Yeah, my
somehow made a
daughter is
good point.
like, she asked me yesterday, "How many MQLs, mom? Spent all day working. How many MQLs? How many leads?" I'm like, "I don't know. We'll talk about it during our QBR." Yeah.
Yeah. Love that. So to get into the podcast, what we like to do is to run past the dilemma that we had on the last episode. So last episode we had Stefan on from Dream Data, and his dilemma was the what he was calling the marketing waterfall problem, which is how he translates all of the awareness he generates then into MQLs or like leads and then into pipeline and then revenue. And the issue that he was finding is exactly when you should move that awareness into even a lead and that lead then into pipeline, and kind of at what point people actually even want to be engaged with sales, and basically how you sort of like segment that funnel up. So really a kind of very like age old problem in marketing, and how to sort of like make that work without sort of like pushing someone too prematurely into a sales process. So putting that back on you, what would be
Great.
your gut reaction to that problem, and how would be how what would advice would you give to Stefan if you were running the podcast, to sort of help him solve that problem?
First of all, love Stefan. I've been on the Dream Data podcast, and he and I have talked
Mhm.
a lot about this as well. Well, not this specifically. Also, I feel like if I actually solved this problem, I'd be rich and you'd never see me again because I would be on some island sipping pina coladas and like not worrying about anything. I fixed attribution, guys, and the funnel. But I think ultimately the realization I had in my career, probably a little bit too late, was that we try so hard to control the buying behavior by doing exactly that, which is we're going to segment everything. We're going to push them. When do we push them too hard? Let's generate all this awareness, and then we're going to do this demand capture. And the issue with that is that we don't control the behavior of the buyer. We can only control the information that we supply them at the different stages when they're ready. And so the epiphany for me happened when I'm like the marketer who was like creating 60 landing pages, and then I would, try to trap the users in there, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm going to change this button color, and the minute they see this red button, they're going to convert. Like they're just going to be automatically ready to buy my $100,000 product," right? Which is such a ridiculous notion if you throw that out into the universe. Um, but the reality was what was happening on the other side. And that was my boss sending me a Slack saying, "Hey, we need this new website translation tool because this plugin isn't working. We need something that's enterprise grade. We're expanding into 5 different countries." Okay, now I've become kind of problem aware. My boss has sent me this Slack on Monday, and she's like, "Find me some options and bring it to our one-on-one, which is on Thursday." So on Monday, I'm like, "Okay, cool. Here's an urgent thing. I have to prioritize what she's asked me." I go in, I do some research, I get to these landing pages that have trapped me, right? But they
Mhm.
don't have the right information on there. And I'm like, I don't even know how much this costs. Who are the players in here? What are my options? I have no idea, right? And I had this like business requirements, business case template thing that I carried like from 3 or 4 companies with me. And then I just changed the logo to be like, oh, but it was my template, right? Because I was so used to getting that internal stakeholder approval, and I knew exactly what questions would come my way. And so I had this template that was like, what is the problem we're having? What are the goals with, where we want to go? Why our existing way does not work, and then here are the options in the market, not just competitors, but it's like, okay, can we use an existing set of tools? Can we try to do it manually? What are the issues there? What is the cost and resources and timing? and then what's the implementation, right? And then what's the sales process like? That was my template.
Hmm.
And I keep saying this, but I need to share it. I'll just share it on my LinkedIn one day. Like, here's the deck that I put out that I used to
Yeah.
use to get internal stakeholder approval.
I was going to ask for it actually. I was like, can you send me that,
Yeah,
please?
I'll send it to you. Yeah, I'll send it to you. And I'll send you a couple of examples because I did it once for like when we wanted to get like I'm gonna say Zoom info, but it was Zoom info for like this form fields thing. And then there was another one which I wanted to move all our web page or all our PDF pages into web pages. So we did a PDF to web page migration. And I had to make the case as to why we had to go through that because it was obviously a huge lift. But we did this for a bunch of tools. So I'll send you those two like prime examples
Mhm.
with everything. And then I would go to these websites and then not find the information that I need, even though I know they have the information. They know how much it's going to cost. They know the sales process. They know what the alternatives are in the market and how they're better. And I would still have to hunt. And then I'm texting my other friends who are heads of digital. I'm like, hey, do you use a website translation tool? Like, and then I go to Reddit, and then Reddit has 5 different answers for how much a tool costs, and then I cobble something together. But now it's Monday. I've done some research for maybe like 45 minutes to an hour. I leave because I have other things to do. Okay. Buying this software is not my only job,
Mhm.
right? And so I close everything out and then I move on with my life. From a marketing standpoint, we're sitting there going, oh my God, this buyer came on this page and then they bounced and it's the worst campaign ever. And I'm going to pivot and we got to change and we got to do all of these things because they're not engaging with it, whatever, and not converting. And I'm like, yeah, because conversions are a lagging indicator and not a leading one. And
Mhm.
so what ends up happening then, Thursday rolls around, I meet with my boss. She's like, hey, do you have those options for me? I run her through my very quick deck just to give her an idea. She says, you know what? Okay, cool. I like those options. Just go ahead and go talk to a few tools and then report back during the next one-on-one on how those went. Okay, now what do? I can't find the landing pages anymore. So I just go to the
Mm.
main website to book a demo. And then what are we doing as marketers? We're sitting in our QBRs going, yeah, so direct traffic was high. We don't even know what that's about. But anyway, these paid campaigns are not working, so we're pivoting,
Mhm.
right? Like we do that all the time. But the primary thing is to just supply the information, and then worry less about what the buyer has to do. And it is going to take some time,
Mhm.
but it will take significantly shorter amount of time if we provide them with the information they need. Like if someone made my job easy and I was able to just copy paste all that stuff into my deck, I would be like, automatically, I'm going to talk to Cognism because
Mhm.
they did that. And actually, you guys are a really good example. I read Alice's book, her volume
Mhm.
two, and I'm like, yeah, everything is like ungated. Everything is like value first. And I think it comes down to that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I feel like you'll capture it regardless. You can't just push
Yeah.
someone to do it.
You've kind of got to let people, you have to be able to let people move through the funnel themselves, and you
Yeah.
can't decide when that's going to be. You can reach out at any point, but then you've got to accept whether people are willing to engage at
Yeah.
that point as well, because you're never going to. And if you try and time your capture too perfectly, I feel like you get it wrong. I think there's like, I've seen that there's that image, or like an image where it's like marketing attribution, and it's like trying to work out basically a picture from loads of different angled pinholes in like a,
Yeah.
like looking at
Yeah.
it, but you basically can't, you'll never get that full picture, you'll never be able to figure it out, and then you just keep adjusting strategy and messing it up,
Yeah.
kind of, as you say, trying to. So
But I
yeah,
think
maybe.
that's when then we get a little bit creepy, we're trying to time it up and we're like, well, what's task thinking? And then
Mhm.
suddenly you're like in the bushes outside my house, like, are you ready? You're like, what are you doing here? so like so it's just things like that where it's like we just got to treat buyers with a little respect and like they're adults and they'll come to us when they're ready. And sure, I think we can still obviously do things like retargeting and reaching out and stuff to stay top of mind. But if we think that we're going to actually push them any further in the buying decision because we like sent some outreach at the appropriate time, which like how do you do that? I think then we're just going to be annoying after a certain point.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like we ended up buying a $50,000 translation tool. But
Hmm.
if I have to pinpoint what that was, it was because we had to go through our process, and once I got the necessary approvals, then we bought it. Um, but it wasn't because the guy sent me 5 emails or something, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
because they nurtured the crap out of me, like, yeah, no, I wasn't nurtured.
Hmm.
Um, or maybe it was such good nurturing I didn't notice. No, I'm kidding, it wasn't
Yeah.
at all, so
I think also like that's the thing, like that's where it would want to be attributed on the other side because everyone wants some maths applied to it, some number that works for them. But realistically, you just had to. There was a whole other process on your side. You had to just by factor of time had to go through that, and it will be attributed to whatever it is on the other side, just to
yeah.
fit their model too. Two different worlds running at completely different speeds, basically. But yeah, maybe the answer to Stefan's dilemma is just for us to sort of relax and allow the process to happen.
Yes, and asking the right questions, and
Hmm.
it's like, when I talked to him, I was like, I'm very, instead of like conversion rate optimization, because again, I think it's a lagging indicator. It's like they've already done so much research before they got to that point that it's the wrong thing to make optimizations based on. You need to
Hmm.
look at how they're behaving. And not like, oh, let's have this ABM landing page that says, like, hey, Liam, like, saw you with your mom the other day having brunch, like, loved your shirt. Anyway, do you want to buy our all in one platform? Like, it's just stuff like that that I think is just so silly. But if we did it like a little bit differently, and it was more about their behavior on the page of information that you have, and you're
Hmm.
saying, hey, these are the problems, here's some commonly asked questions and objections. And we saw a lot of those examples too on the page where people would, how long are they staying, how much are they consuming, and what is their number one question. And you'll see, we saw that with one of my clients where 15% of all clicks were on like the fourth FAQ. And so we knew it was like a big objection of theirs. So we moved it to its own block. And then we saw like a 265% increase in purchases. And
Hmm.
so it was kind of insane. But then if you only base that on conversions, you wouldn't get that insight or that
Hmm.
information. So you always want to look at, you know, how users are engaging with the content that you're putting out, and making sure you're putting the right content up front and center. So
That's super interesting. All right,
yeah.
so we should jump into your dilemma. So, what dilemma are you bringing to the show today, and can you give us the lay of the land around it?
Oh, so my biggest thing, it's kind of like an inception of dilemmas. And one of the things was when I was in house, you have your different teams, and you're like, I was head of digital and website. I was doing like 45 projects. So like product marketing was doing their own thing, customer marketing, and you're kind of like, okay, you guys are all kings of your own kingdoms, and like we're all doing stuff. I trust your expertise and you trust mine, and we just bring that together. Obviously one person can't know everything, but I remember saying when I was in house that product marketing was my weakest, which is now such a silly thing for me to say, because like you kind of have to know the product to market it really well. Like I was running ads for it, and it's like, what do you mean product marketing was your weakest? But um and I worked very closely with them to get stuff done. But I think one of the biggest things when we were discussing the dilemma ahead of time, we were just talking about what that relationship is between product and product marketing and us on like the demand gen side or the digital and website side of things. Um, and like, how do we overlap there enough to where it's like you don't need to know everything that they know, but how much sign off would you need and how much involvement would you need in all the demand gen stuff that you're churning out in order for it to be effective. Um, and so when I came actually only after I'd left my in-house position, I was like, oh crap, that was such a pivotal role for me to do my job. And
Hmm.
now I don't have that person anymore. Like WTF, what do I do now that I'm out here and I have to work with dozens of companies and don't have that background on their stuff? And that's when um, I had to kind of come up with this innovative way to do like a light version of product marketing in order to get up to speed with the products and then build the landing pages appropriately. But now looking back, I'm like, dang, I did not know what I was doing in house. I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever this person said, the product marketer is like, cool. There was no layout or structure or story. It was just kind of like, oh, this integration's important. Oh, we just released this feature. Chuck that on
Mhm.
the page. We're good, right? We'll just talk about whatever, everything. Oh, we just won an award, throw it on there. Even though it has nothing to do with the product, we just won best company of the year for employees or whatever. And we're like, it was just ridiculous. I'm like, oh my god, how did people pay me to do my job? It's like, what was I doing? And so I think there's a lot of that now where if I could go back and talk to myself back then and I'd be
Mhm.
like, you need to do so much more on the product marketing side or understand so much there, even though you had some of the resources in order to do your job really well.
Mhm.
And so it's like, how would I do that if I ever went back in house today?
Mhm.
So
And
that was kind of the question.
what's the light PMM process that you built now? If you were to, would you take that back to your past self? Like, would you find, is
Yeah.
it something that you feel like as a sort of demand gen marketer that like they should have this sort of light process themselves as well?
Yes, absolutely. I would take it back. It's funny because now when most of the clients that I work with are like heads of demand gen, heads of marketing, mostly heads of demand gen growth, the people who are in charge of all the paid channels um and so when I show them that, their eyes like open up because they're like, yeah, we just kind of rely on the product marketers to do it. I'm like, yeah, me too.
Mhm.
So this is me like compensating for the fact that I just don't have that with me now. I had to be that person. And sometimes
Mhm.
that's good. Sometimes in the absence of that, you just kind of figure it out, right? Like
Mhm.
no one's around to help you change a tire. You're like, well, my tire's flat. I got to change it. Like I got to figure this out. And so you just learn to be scrappy and you learn to be innovative in your own way. And so with with the product marketing thing now, when I show them my process, the heads of demand gen, they're like, oh, this would be very helpful. And so what they end up doing, and I'll walk you through it, but they look
Mhm.
at that process, they're like, this is great because yeah, you're going to use it for the landing pages. But we can look at this. Like I have a client who uses it. She's the head of demand gen and they're a small team, but as they start onboarding vendors, other full-time employees, she just walks them through this because it gives them the entire landscape of the product, the market, the competitors, and she can do it in like 20 minutes versus them going
Mhm.
through like, I mean, I've been in like 6 7 companies now, which is telling in itself. They're gonna be like, why is she running around so much? I'm also old, so there's that. But you know, it was so inconsistent. There was only one company that had such a thorough onboarding process, but it was also like hours and hours of material to go over, their product and it's like manufacturing SaaS. Like it is not interesting at all. So it's sitting there trying to do that. But if someone gave me like the light version of what I do now,
Mhm.
like I would just been like, okay, cool, I'm ready to go. Let's go.
Mhm.
Um, so I would do a screen share if we totally did that. But anyway, the process is, that business case template I told you about? I
Mhm.
basically mapped it out in Figma.
Mhm.
And it's this like business case template and framework that I put in there. And what I do is I break it out by understanding first what's the market like. And so, what would someone be looking for if they're searching for your product? They're likely searching for a problem or a product category that's very layman's terms to them. So,
Mhm.
like, while in B2B, we're running around like, we are the revenue generating platform, and it's like a video tool, you know? Um, so, like, what are people actually calling it versus what are you calling it? And so
Mhm.
sometimes it's like I look at it as me holding a mirror to the company and saying, hey, you are calling it revenue generating platform. They are calling it video tool. Which one would you like
Mhm.
to test on the landing page? Let's do the other one. And and then I also do some like light keyword research for them for how people are getting to their competitors. And sometimes it's even that, right? Like it's like,
Mhm.
oh crap, I want to show up for data management platform. How come my competitor's showing up for that? And we're showing up for like rinky dink something AI, whatever. Um, something that like has nothing to do with our product. And so that's kind of like showing them a mirror there, understanding who's your primary like company type that you're targeting. And then they always have a dilemma there. You know, it's like, oh, well, SMBs are the ones that give us all this money, but we really want to move up market. I'm like, yeah, I've literally had that conversation 50 times. Mid market's where it's at, but we're moving up market as a company. I'm like, okay, let's manage expectations. And then company type, industry or verticals, what are the, your big focus points there? And then understanding the alternatives. And the alternatives aren't just your competitors in the market, but also what's the status quo? Because I can tell you
Mhm.
right now, before I spend $50,000 on a tool, I will do borderline illegal things to see if I can do it for nothing,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I'm bargain Bober. I'm going to cheap out somewhere. It's not my money, but it's my budget. I
Yeah.
would much rather spend 50,000 on some paid campaigns that I know is going to drive pipeline and leads, because I have goals that I have to report on, rather than spending $50,000 on a translation tool that I won't
Mhm.
see any like actual quantifiable ROI on. So like, so what are those alternatives? How are they doing it today? Because we have to talk about acknowledging how they're doing it today and
Mhm.
saying, well, here are the risks with doing it that way. And then looking at the competitors and acknowledging my competitor has this strength, but they also have this weakness. And this is where we actually win. So I'll give you an example. One of my companies, very well known company,
Mhm.
they told me that they target SMBs. They have like 10,000 reviews on G2 and everywhere else, and they said that one of the reasons that their customers buy from them is because they're AI powered. I'm like, I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say that is not the case. And I'm like, your customers have said this. Your SMB customers, I know SMBs in my city, and they like chat what now? I'm like, chat GPT. Your SMBs are saying that AI powered is the reason they choose you. And then I pulled up three competitor sites, which all said AI powered. And I'm like, but they're choosing you because of this thing. So then when we comb through all of the feedback on the reviews, the actual thing that they were choosing them over the others was because as SMBs, they are usually pushed into self-serve motion at most
Mhm.
companies. But this is the only company that offered them 24/7 support and made them feel like they were bigger than they were. That was the
Mhm.
differentiator. So that's what we ended up leading with. So there's things like that, where we're like, how you actually win isn't AI powered. It is
Mhm.
your 24/7 customer support. And it's boring. I know you want to jump on the AI train, but this is why people are buying from you and will continue to buy from you. So like looking at that and then pulling out what those actual differentiated value themes are. And then I use the Fletch PMM canvas. Love those guys, Anthony and
Mhm.
Rob. And I use like version 38. They're like on 101 now, but this was the best one for me. And like look at all the features, and then I match them. I group them according to themes, because no one. I always use this example: like you're walking in a mall, and
Mhm.
then you walk by a shoe store, and someone's standing outside, and they're just screaming at you, um, "Leather soles, running shoes," and you're like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" And that's what we do on B2B websites. We love to just be like AI powered, CRM integration. We just like yell these features and we just feature dump, right? But like in real life, that would be so stupid. Like that would
Mhm.
be insane if someone did that. And so we try to talk about them in context of what they're trying to solve. Hey, my database is a freaking mess. Okay, yeah, and it's hard to keep up with. Well, guess what? We have a hygiene analysis tool. It'll comb through, it'll give you a detailed diagnosis of what's wrong, right? And if they want more information about like, well, how are you able to do that in 30 minutes? Oh, well, we use like this AI technology to do it. So it's more of like the how versus,
Mhm.
like what you're trying to accomplish for them. And the second, it's like, okay, cool. Now I have all this diagnosis. Like, what am I supposed to do next? Oh, if you want to clean it up, we have the ability to clean it up. using this. And the one thing that makes us different is that it's continuous cleanliness versus batched, which is how other solutions tend to do it. So you're talking about differentiation, but you're talking about it in context of the problem. So you go down the list like that versus like just screaming leather soles. What if someone doesn't want leather soles? Like, okay, what am I supposed to do with leather soles? Am I supposed to wear leather? Like, I don't understand. So we got walk through that. We collect all the proof, both the stuff that you have from your own customers, but also agnostically, like what are people saying about you on Reddit? Pull those in. And
Hmm.
then your pricing, which only about half the companies ever show it, but I always say just do like a starting range. And
Hmm.
then the last part, which is what's your sales process like? And it doesn't have to be everything up until closed one, like, and we will send you
Hmm.
3 follow-up emails, like no one cares. But just like, hey, if you fill out this form, someone will reach out to you within 24 hours. We'll schedule a 30-minute chat on your use cases, and then
Hmm.
we'll schedule an hour demo with a solutions engineer. So we make sure that the demo is like best suited for you. That's it. It just disarms them. That's the
Hmm.
business case. That's the information. And then now, if you take any company and like you just throw away the landing pages for a second and you do any marketing collateral that's sitting on the end of that, you walk someone through that, they would immediately understand what Cognism
Hmm.
does, what's the landscape of the market, what are the alternatives that users are considering, who are the other tools in the market, how do we actually win, what are our features, and how do those complement the problems that we're trying to solve, what are our customers saying about us, and what's our pricing and sales process, right?
Hmm.
Like that would have
Perfect.
been it.
So
Yeah.
I suppose in running that process though, how why I suppose why would you do that necessarily in the presence of a PMM team? Where do you think that covers would have covered you for whilst you had a PMM team? Do you think it would have just been potentially in like your own understanding, or is there something that's maybe is like a miss in that communication between that sort of like a demand gen growth person and the PMM team? I suppose where does this process sort of like help that person in their day to day goals?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is PMMs. I'm like they're like the secret CEOs of the company. Like they're just everywhere and doing so much, and they're constantly inundated with requests coming in from sales, sales enablement, customers, us constantly.
Hmm.
And the problem, much like any department in B2B, is that we are constantly churning shit out. Like, how many times it's like, oh, we got 30 blog posts we have to write this month. Okay. We got a newsletter. We got 6 emails that we're sending out. We got these sequences. I've got like 16 paid campaigns that need to run out. So when the PMMs are sitting here going, I have the sales enablement deck. I have like these one pagers, these new features. Oh, we have a product launch. Oh, we have to do the pitch deck. There's so much stuff that sometimes, like, think about sales who has to actually go and have these conversations with customers. This is why they use version 10 of a deck, and they never, and like the biggest frustration is like, you guys aren't using the latest material. You know why? There is so much of it. And so
Hmm.
when there's so much of it, people get analysis paralysis. And so that's why I never bothered to learn that stuff, because I knew I would be diving into a pool and drowning in this like
Hmm.
gigantic pool of material. Why would I do that when I could just pull Matt, my PMM, into a call with me for 30 minutes and be like, is this right? Is that
Hmm.
like, you throw your hands up, right? You're like, I'm just going to focus on my stuff. But I feel like if I understood that, there would be so much like self enablement I'd be able to
Hmm.
do and not have to harass him all the time. And if we just had this like foundational base stuff where it was like, this is the foundation of our product and our sales process. As
Hmm.
new stuff comes in, we maybe revisit this canvas like once a quarter to say, hey, in the grouping of these features and how we're talking about it, this is something that we should just add into the sentence versus like, let's make an entire product launch, feature launch document where everybody's all hands on deck and we're writing 16 pieces of content. We're sending it all to sales. And then we're expecting sales to be like, hey, use the latest one. And they're like, I don't even know. Like, you've sent me latest ones like
Hmm.
100 times this month. I don't know which one to use. Right. And they're supposed to
Hmm.
get up there and sell to these companies, and imagine if they're like going up there and they're like, "Hey, so we just launched a new integration, with Pipedrive," and they're like, "Okay, anyway, my specific use case is like around this," and then they're just, they're always
Mhm.
going to revert back to what they're comfortable with and what they know. Iteration of existing information versus like, here's new information, new information, new information. You're just gonna like clock out. So I don't
Mhm.
blame them. 'Cause I mean, I was an AE for 3 years, and that was the same thing. I was like, I like my deck better.
Yeah.
And then the marketers are sitting there like, I'm gonna kill someone. So yeah,
So I suppose in that process as well, like who do you think, say you managed to get like, so the PMM light process ran in an internal in your old role in-house, who owns that process going forward? Do you think that's the duty, I suppose, of someone in that sort of demand gen growth role? Or do you actually think that maybe this is like, this dilemma is actually caused by PMM not actually having, or in that situation, actually having that information easily accessible to you, and that's actually a them problem? I suppose the dilemma kind of still exists to some respects. It's like you've kind of
yeah,
solved it for yourself, and you go out and solve it with clients now when they come unable to provide that information to you. But whose responsibility is it amongst those teams? And like maybe it's on both sides. There's one that it's not the right information to be used, in demand gen aspect isn't communicated well enough, but then there's demand gen marketers who, to your point, kind of maybe just feel like, I just don't even need to learn this stuff because I'll just be, if I just need to ask for a slide, I get given a slide, sort of thing. But
yeah.
who is responsible?
Um, so it's funny because when I do it with the companies today, the demand gen marketer is always like, "Oh, we got to get sign off from product marketing." And I was like,
Mhm,
"Perfect." So I almost preemptively tell them like, "Hey, most companies I work with, they have their PMM sign off on this business case."
mhm,
And then what ends up happening is then the PMMs don't need to really review the landing page copy. It takes them out of the rest of the stuff, like
mhm,
in the weeds. There was so many times I would pull my PMM in and I'm like, look at this web page, or like, can you review this web page before it goes out? Because I wasn't secure in the foundational knowledge that existed. There was just so much of it that I relied on them. So I
mhm,
think essentially the PMM function would own it, and
mhm,
it would be something that we would revisit as a team
mhm,
probably once a quarter, right? Everyone has team meetings every week or whatever. So like once a quarter, as it changes, as new product launches and stuff happens, revisiting like one asset over and over again. Like human beings need repetition and frequency, which is
mhm.
why most retargeting ads are like frequency caps like 56 or something ridiculous. We're gonna own them until they buy, but um, so it's the same thing. So if if my PMM kept showing new decks every single time, like you just kind of tune it out. You're like, yeah, I
Mhm,
don't know if this is relevant to me. Now I can still remember certain assets that would keep coming up. And there was like one that was this lucid chart that we did quite frequently. There was one that was like a pitch deck. So if we went back to these core materials and say this canvas or like this lucid chart was one of them that we kept going, and we're like, okay, everybody who's walked into this team is onboarded on this like lucid chart thing, right?
mhm,
And then every quarter it's brought up and it's like, this is where this fits into like which product mix and which like contextual problem we're solving and those types of things. Do our competitors have it? So like every single aspect is updated based on
mhm,
that. And it is the same thing that's referenced over and over and over again. And I think it's that. It's like it's so much easier to remember, like, okay, you have Goldilocks and the Three Bears as your
mhm,
foundational story. And then you introduce a new character in there, and it's like you've been through the iteration versus like you have Goldilocks, now you have Red Riding Hood, and then you have three little pigs, and you're like, wait, why are there three pigs and three bears? And like there's just so much going on. Like I don't understand which one I should use, that kind of thing. So it's the same
mhm,
thing of playing like a game on telephone versus like here's this iteration of the same book, right? That we're all working on and off of. So
mhm,
I think ultimately they need to own it. But in owning that and being that like central knowledge base, they can remove themselves and we can remove them from a lot of the like trickle down effect of like our jobs and what we're trying to do. If I had
mhm.
that foundation stuff, um, I could generate ads and know that I'm not going to be inaccurate, right?
Hmm.
Without having to do the gut check.
Hmm.
So those types of things, it has an impact kind of later on. And then if anyone's like, "Wait, where'd you get the copy for this?" And you're like, "Lucid chart over here."
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think would be like the internal or external constraints that are just holding teams back from being able to achieve this to get to the lucid chart North Star?
I think that, well, okay. Now you're like, "Let's not complain," when we were talking pre-recording, and now I'm like,
Yes.
"Well, I'm gonna sound a little complaining right now."
Yeah.
One, there's too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Hmm.
Ultimately, anytime I've worked on a marketing team, it's never really the people who are, like, doing the work, like, all the ICs and, like, the mid-level management and stuff like that. They all
Hmm.
have kind of this understanding. It always comes down to who's kinda leading the charge. And so
Hmm.
I think ultimately, you know, your CMOs, your VPs. Wait, aren't you're the VP, aren't you, Liam? So you're the
Yeah.
problem. Is where I'm going with this.
Hi, I'm the problem.
You are the
Mark,
problem.
Mark
Hi.
dilemma's over because we've just found out it's all me.
We're killing the recording. It's done.
Yeah.
Um, Anyway, but I think ultimately it's that. It's like always coming back. Like you need the leader to always say, no, we need to go back to the lucid chart. And I think that's that buy-in that's the most important, is like they're the ones that are supposed to corral the teams. The teams are
Hmm.
going to, whether they like it or not, begrudgingly or not, follow your direction. Right.
Hmm.
And I can't tell you how many behind the scenes conversations I would have with my peers where, like, in the middle of a meeting, my boss is telling us to do something, and then we're slacking each other like, this is the worst idea ever. But then does the team have the autonomy to like push back and talk through those pieces? But ultimately, it should come from like the head to say, this is our base, this is always our hub of where we operate all these different places from. And that could be your lucid chart, and like you have these core documents. Maybe it's a folder on your drive that's like, these are our foundational like rocks of
Hmm.
content. Anytime you have a question or you're worried about it or whatever, this is the folder that you will reference. Maybe you make a custom GPT that has all of this in the knowledge base that the team can then just ask it based on
Hmm.
that, right? And remove a lot of that out of there. Um, a lot of that management. But I think ultimately it just comes down to that, and saying that's what they do. But I will say this, that a lot of what the PMMs are like say are kind of taken as the Bible. And
Hmm.
so I think out of all the teams, they probably have the most autonomy just because they're so close to the product and
Hmm.
everything else. And so I think them owning that and even just coming in, I probably won't get hired for this ever again in house. But, I think if I went back, I would do a lot more asking for forgiveness than permission next time. No one's ever going to hire me again. They're going to be like, oh my God, she's just going to go rogue. And I'm like, no, I think some things are just better done. Then you bring the
Hmm.
data to kind of support it after, because people are so busy. And so I think ultimately it comes down to the PMMs being afforded autonomy to run the process and always bring that back. And then up to the leaders to make sure that people are not distracted, like Dory,
Hmm.
the fish. And it's like, no, 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 come back here. No, we got to go find your parents, Dory. Like, stay the course. Don't go to the turtles on the other side. And then protecting them from the outside influences, which is like sales is requesting this, products
Hmm.
requesting this, that kind of stuff. So your job as a leader is to protect and
Hmm.
then direct.
Hmm.
And that is kind of where it needs to stay. So hopefully I answered that question
Yeah,
instead
yeah,
of complaining.
really good. I mean, what I love about it is I think I've got a clear idea of kind of suppose where success kind of lies in this for me. It's like that really we just need to have like demand gen, growth oriented people who are mini product marketers in themselves. And I think sometimes we just
Yes.
let that go, and with an over reliance that there's someone else who would do this role for me. But actually, for the whole
Yeah.
function to work and the whole everything to work without it becoming misaligned at some point or feeling like you can't move without constantly having to
Yeah.
go for approval because you don't know it, you have to become like a mini product marketer yourself. And I think
Yes.
you've given a framework there really on how you can
Yeah.
do that without it being some crazy expensive tool that you have to do it from. You actually just need to build the process yourself. I suppose for larger
Yeah.
teams, the only thing is, I suppose it is probably comes a bit more sometimes down to how you create that communication structure between the two teams. I mean, our like product marketing and demand gen teams now roll up into one leader that's like running both, and I think that's come kind of our way to try and solve it, because otherwise there
Yeah.
just ended up being lots of claims all over the place that maybe weren't actually
Yeah.
particularly in line with of where we're at, and keeping control of those sort of like how we're positioning
Yeah.
ourselves in different regions going forward. So yeah, I do like it. I
I
like it as a, and I think you've given all the listeners like something they can try and go away and build themselves now as well.
Yeah, and I think that, say you're sitting there listening to this and you're like, well, our PMMs are too busy. I'm not going to assign them this lucid chart and have them build this in addition to all the other stuff. Then just do it yourself, for your own understanding. You have access to all of this like internal documentation. It's probably copious amounts of like battle cards, product information, new product launches. Um, you have some access to like perhaps keyword tools and stuff like that. Obviously AI. And so ask yourself some basic questions, and then build it yourself for your own reference. And I promise you, once you build that out and you have this light version, and then you bring it up in a meeting and someone sees it and they're like, wait, what's that? Because that is literally what happened to me. It was a back end process for
Mm-hmm.
me to get up to speed on a client. And so when I pulled it up for her and I was like, I just want to confirm with you on these competitors, she's like, what? She's like, what is this thing? And then I zoomed out and I walked her through it and she was like, oh, can I have that? Because this would be so helpful for me to onboard people and write my nurture sequences and like do my email. I was like, yeah, don't ask me to write your nurture sequences, but yeah, you can have it. So I started giving it to her and I started doing it for all of my clients as well. And so that's like the first third of my process is just doing that. And they all love it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then they can iterate on it over time, like after I'm long gone and they never have to see my face again. But if I went in-house right now, I would immediately build that out, because you're going to get like, here's the shared drive and it has like thousands of decks in there. You're like, oh my God. And then now with AI it's even easier. So like if it's proprietary information, your company's sensitive about it, you can like um, uncheck the box for it to train based on that info. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure companies are now enabling their teams to use it, or use like an enterprise version that keeps everything pretty secure and private. Fine, use that. Put this documentation in there and say, build me a business case based on this documentation. I want you to divvy it up by the market. What's the product category? What would a regular person call this product category versus us internally? You know, who's the primary target? Who are the companies that we're targeting? Give me a 2 sentence elevator pitch of our product. How many times I've asked someone, I'm like, what does your product do? And I'm like, 30 minutes later, I'm like, I think I have an understanding. I'm not sure. Ask it for an elevator pitch. Then ask it for like, how would buyers be doing this otherwise without a tool? It'll give you the
Mm-hmm.
status quo options. And then it'll say, okay, who are the competitors in the market? Search the web. Let me know. Tell me where we win, where our competitors win. So I'm kind of aware of that, aware of our blind spots, what's truly our differentiators. Uh, scope out all the testimonials and what people are saying about us on the internet. What are they saying? Good, bad, ugly? Let us know. That's the proof point. And then you obviously have access to what your sales process is like. And that's it. You could build it all out very quickly and give yourself an
Mm-hmm.
understanding of the company that you're at.
Have you seen any marketers or companies that you feel, and like even if like ones that you've worked with that you see doing this really well, or you feel are just doing it well just by judging by how they're communicating uh, their positioning and value through their demand gen efforts?
Huh. No, not organized like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the like type A in me, is that I need things to be like pretty like organized, process oriented. I like the sequential stuff. Obviously, that's not how we consume information.
Hmm.
I would still ask my set of questions to get there. I can think of brands who are doing a good job staying top of mind, but I don't know if they're
Hmm.
doing a good job supplying all the right information. So that's
Hmm.
always a question in my head is like, yeah, you're doing a great job being cute with the memes, but like, which is fine. I love the memes and I love you guys because of it.
Hmm.
Um, but if I was actually shopping for the product and I can't even get basic pricing information, like that's a problem for me.
Hmm.
Um, and much like, and if you're targeting a technical audience, it's even worse. They will definitely do illegal things before they talk to
Hmm.
you. So that's why even just saying, hey, starting rate, like we start at 35,000. Okay, cool. Do you even want to work with anyone who can't hit your bottom dollar of 35,000? We're so scared of that in B2B. We'll
Hmm.
turn someone away. Good. They can't afford you anyway. So anyway, that's how I would do it. And then that would make me a better marketer in-house. 100% would do that. But I've done it for like, I don't know, 20 something companies now. And so I can tell you their stuff now, their landing pages are all around. Some of them won't even do the landing pages. They'll just put it on their main website, and run it that way. And yeah, it works.
Okay. Amazing. So one final question, I suppose, is what we've actually got is what would be the one next step you would take after this conversation. But I feel like in this instance, it would be great to know, given that you've sort of given the dilemma, but also given a good process to actually deal with it. Where would you give someone next to start, like maybe solve this dilemma? What one next step should they take to go out there and solve it?
Uh, do it anyway. Don't wait for
Mhm.
somebody else to do it for you. I think like the best thing you can do now because of the state of the market, like teams are really lean, budgets are cut, resources are light. Like that is just the state of marketing, and it's probably only going to get worse with AI, and you're going to be asked to do more. And so
Mhm.
you need to do these things to kind of battle proof and just like make sure that you're kind of taken care of. It's a self-sufficiency type of thing, where you're going to start to build these models to make sure that you can do your work faster and thoroughly and not have to depend on someone. Because to be honest, your entire PMM team could go tomorrow. And what are you going to do then?
Mhm.
So I think we all have to become kind of like those deep generalists, and then utilize tools and or people, but like processes to kind of complement the stuff that we're not good at. And so for me, when I was in house, like product marketing was kind of my weak side, right? Like I was very familiar with the marketing ops side. I've run marketing ops before. So I was like, cool, yeah, I get it. Like, yeah, the CRM, marketing automation platform, like setting up all of that stuff's good. Digital website, obviously that's my bread and butter. Great, amazing. Corp comms, moving on. And then we were product marketing. Kind of like, I'm so mean. There's gonna be like corp con people like, excuse me. No, they were obviously like content and brand and all of those things, but I feel like I had a decent understanding. I mean, I worked in
Mhm.
media, like
Mhm.
I got it. But product marketing was just kind of this black hole. So identify what your black hole is. Is that product marketing for you? Is that your product marketer and you don't know demand gen that well?
Mhm.
And like how your stuff impacts them. So come up with a similar framework and process to understand the impact of your work across, and then just know enough to where you're like, I don't have to always depend on that team because we are running lean. We are running on like steam, not, fuel
Mhm.
anymore. What does that look like? And so I wish I came up with that process. You're really busy, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be wasted time to back yourself up and give yourself
Mhm.
options in terms of like these processes that can be kind of automated and done for you just by
Mhm.
spending a little time thinking about it just a little bit more,
Mhm.
so
Perfect. I actually think everyone needs to learn just to sometimes slow down a bit and actually,
yeah.
yeah, spend that time thinking about it because it just pays back dividends later on. I think we're all sometimes frantically rushing around trying to get stuff done without actually
I
taking
mean,
that time to pause.
and like for me, when I first came out and then I panicked because I didn't have math, my PMM anymore. And I was like, how the heck am I going to do this? So then I just binged a bunch of stuff about product marketing. So, like, while I work out or while I went on a walk, I was like, okay, I read like
Mhm,
all of April Dunford's books. I like consumed like Lenny's newsletter and like followed a bunch of people who are really good at product marketing on LinkedIn, like Anthony and Rob and all of those guys, and kind of looked at all the methodologies. And I think the first half of your career, you're kind of like learning all the best practices, and then the second half of your career you're like, you can challenge them because
mhm,
you have lived experience now. And so taking all of their povs and saying, yeah, I kind of agree with that, I don't agree with that, and kind of forming your own. But it's like the people have sat the stones ahead of you. Go consume that information. Like, we live in a very powerful age where we have access to information, probably too much.
mhm,
But you can at least get a good understanding, an idea of something, and then form your own opinions after that. So I do have like a merge of everybody's product marketing POVs, but there are lots of ones where I was like, I don't agree with that.
mhm,
Shed, shed. And
mhm,
so what's left is just kind of like my perception of it, which works until someone challenges me. I'm like, you know what? That's a
mhm,
good thing to think about. And you iterate on that as well. So yeah, just do that. If you don't know enough about demand gen and growth, do the same thing. Go find people and then learn to approach it with cautious optimism, and optimistic skepticism, and
mhm,
say, like, does that make sense? Does that not? Would it work on me? Would it not?
mhm.
Um, and just spend some time thinking about it.
Well, there you have it. There is the demand gen marketer's call to product marketing arms, and to go arm yourself to the teeth with all the PMM knowledge that you can get, and put it into your campaigns, because it's gonna benefit you in the long run,
Yes.
not just now, but in your career as well, so that you don't ever have to have this fear of losing your version of Matt and him
Yeah,
not being able to support you. But thank you so much for coming on and
of
sharing your
course.
dilemma. It's been great, and I think it's been super actionable, so people can actually go away and take something away with it. And I'm sure people will be frantically note taking down your process so that they can try and emulate it. But yeah, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure.